All right. Hello, everyone. This is Mandi Ray of Ecstatic Astrology, and I'm joined by Sonia of Celestia Astrology, and we are with Asteria via Kairos Collective, and this is the weekly update for the 19th through the 26th of 2025. So, let's dive into all of the ethereal things going on. So we have the Neptune conjunct the mean node, which we've already gone through Neptune conjunct the true node. Different astrologers use different points, so we're going to be looking at both just to see. The 24th, Mars direct in Cancer at 17 degrees 0 minutes. And the 25th, Mercury conjunct Saturn in Pisces.
Yeah.
Here are those dates again. Just so you can see them in a big way. The 23rd, Neptune and the North Node. 24th, Mars direct in Cancer. Yay, everyone can celebrate. And the 25th, Mercury meets Saturn in Pisces. So yeah, I think this is a big week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still tracking with this difference between the mean and the true node. I'm still tracking which is which, because the mean node takes me to 29 Aries and the true node takes me to, or the other way around. I can never remember. But one puts me in Taurus and one puts me in Aries. So I'm still like tracking events and trying to figure out which one. I'm coming down on the side of the true node being the one that I can link events to and dates to, but I'm still just tracking both and watching to see what resonates for me.
Yeah, for sure. And
which one speaks most.
Yeah, they're both points in space. And I think the true node indicates, if you're going to look at an eclipse, you really don't look at the mean node. You look at the true node because you want to see where the shadow is, so that's kind of why I come down on the true node side, I think, as well.
Yeah, the mean node is just, if you're not a mathematician, where it just averages out all those little fluctuations. That just sounds.
Two conjunct the North Node. So I guess as far as this goes, you can use this in your own life to see if this has some major meaning for you. It is, again, kind of exclamation point for eclipse cycle, and also for Venus retrograde, I think, because it will come back by this point as well. So this date is just, I think, highlighted for purposes of tracking. If you really are following astrology, this is a really good date to tune into what's going on in your life and to see what might be coming forward with the eclipse. The moon being in Capricorn that day, sextile the sun in Pisces, I think just brings more of the emphasis on all of this Pisces pileup that we've got going on. Even the moon's like, oh, hey, what's going on over there in Pisces, So on a scale of, big things happening, I'm not sure this will be like extremely noticeable, but it's definitely worth tuning into.
Yeah, Neptune can be that harder to grasp, can't it? What's going on with Neptune?
And sometimes it's background programming. You're not supposed to know. It's the subconscious. It's the ethereal. But yeah, I think it's the moment that is just before Mars stations direct as well. So I think things might actually seem pretty ethereal and magical on that day, no matter what you do. I mean, it's just almost like a pause. It feels like a pause.
Yeah, you got Mars and Mercury coming tighter. Mercury's just coming to reach that trine with Mars as well, bringing information to Mars, gathering information from Cancer, watery Cancer, bringing information into watery Pisces. It feels quite nice. I think I said in the earlier recording when it reached the true node was that Neptune's cycle is 165 years. So it's approximately 14 years in the sign. And we looked to see, and Neptune and the node didn't actually meet in Pisces last time Neptune was in Pisces. So it just feels that bit, last time.
Special.
Yeah. So it feels just that bit more special that they're meeting now. We have to wait. They met in Aquarius the last time the nodes were passing this side of the chart, this side of the zodiac. So we were thinking back sort of maybe 9 years ago to your themes.
Yeah.
And the reason we're saying that is because we're heading to eclipse season. As the sun gets closer to this node, that's going to bring us into eclipse season in March. So there's contact with the outers and the node just starts maybe triggering something in our subconscious or in our dreams or something that's quite often with eclipse season, you get that intensity right around the season. But before it, you get little intuitions or instincts about where things are going, where they're heading. And this is something that would bring that through to you, bring those little prods of just telling you, do this, don't do that. Like today, for some reason, I was just, I suppose with the moon, it was Cancer rising when we started recording, but I kept getting this prompt, put your best perfume on. It's like, yeah, but we're recording. It's like, no, nobody can spell me, but it was like, yeah, okay. And it just kept carrying on telling me to do that until I did it. So yeah, maybe it's in the nodes, or maybe it's the moon, but you know, they want me to smell nice for you.
Right.
So it's like, it's funny because I very rarely put perfume on if I'm watching from.
That's a Pisces thing too.
Yeah, but it's like when
Mist.
you get that little thought in your head of you haven't put your perfume on yet, and it's like, well, no, I wasn't going to. And you start arguing with yourself. It's like, just follow that thought. Don't argue with it. Just lean into it. And it's like,
Intuition, very strong around this time.
yeah, I'll go and put some perfume on. No, your best perfume. Are you sure? Yes, okay. So that's just one way, because it is that information coming to you that different way, and especially with Mercury being there as well. It's flowing and shifting, you know, just like the ocean flowing and shifting out. We gave you those dates before.
It was November 2016 was the South Node Neptune.
Yeah.
And that was the last eclipse season with the nodes flipped too. So every 18 years, the North Node returns to the same sign, but every 9, it flips. So, or 9 years after the North Node is in Pisces, the South Node is in Pisces. So the last time we had the Pisces Virgo eclipses, Neptune was in Pisces, but the South Node was there, not the North Node. So it was more of a letting go, and this is more of a inviting in.
Yeah, thank you. And then I've got a note that the next conjunction isn't until October 2041. So these occurrences are much rarer. So a lot of the personal planets moving around, we're quite familiar with the energy, but this is an unusual energy. We don't talk about very often, or that doesn't happen very often. So for me as a fairly new astrologer, it's like leaning into it, and you've got to try it out and see as well. You've got to live through it and experience it, knowing what it is. 2017 was a year for me. I do remember. So I hope themes aren't repeated, is all I can say.
That's right.
It wasn't the easiest year for me, but maybe that's also Neptune in the South Node. But yeah, they're long time scale marking, and sometimes it's like chapters in your spiritual journey. Sometimes you can look back and see seasons and chapters emerging. Astrology isn't always from a specific date to another specific date, but you can look back and see those seasons in your life. And again, this Neptune can be about our spiritual journey and our connection with information from other places, especially with these other planets here. You know,
yeah.
Even this mean node connection is different to the true node connection that happened in the first week of the month because of Sun and Mercury having joined the party now. So
that's right. Yeah. And sorry. You just get excited about stuff. I just figured out that the last North Node Neptune conjunction in Pisces was January of 1858.
Wow.
Yeah, just to get and what's funny about that time frame was Uranus was exactly the same place. It was at 25 Taurus, pretty close, and Saturn was at 25 Cancer. So, these things do throughout history kind of come back, and we all know around that time, I think what was going on in the world, especially America. I think that Abraham Lincoln had his debates with Senator Stephen Douglas. So there was a lot going on.
It's funny to sort of orient yourself into something that was so long ago, but these cycles, that's why we kind of try and give you some dates is just to like really ground yourself into these cycles and get a feeling of quite how rare this is this time, and just to really feel into this day. Or around this day, because obviously it's quite intense when it's applying as well.
That's right. And
also to think, where would you like to go forward in your spiritual journey? Because when astrologers debate fate and free will, we do believe that there's wriggle room there for agency, and having some intentions and tracking these cycles and just being aware of them and maybe creating that healthy container again just gives us some agency of if we look back on where we were. I mean, obviously that's a huge chapter. We weren't existing in that time, but so that means that up to this point, it's been the whole of our life. So where this is like a marker in your spiritual journey, where are you now? And where would you like the rest of your life to go? Because this is like the halfway point in that karmic fated side of this journey. I mean, the nodes and Neptune just seem to sort of bring that same kind of energy in. And just having an idea for yourself of where you would like it to go kind of negotiates with fate in that sense of this is what I'm bringing to the table, rather than just letting it all happen. Although there is a Neptune thing of surrendering. It's like, okay, I surrender to what's meant to be. Also, like, can we choose this path rather than that path? You know, you kind of got some agency as you're grappling through the fog. You sometimes do decide to go towards the water, or you smell something in the fog that draws you one way rather than the other. Even when there is confusion, there is that kind of means of navigating it as well. You know, what tools do you choose to navigate while you're in that confusion? Because of Neptune's significations, I mean, I've got like this illusory, transcendent, otherworldly, foggy, sort of romantic as well. I mean, that's nice with the Venus connection, Venus being the exaltation ruler, but oceanic, like that expansiveness and dissolving. It can remove boundaries for us. You know, if there was something in your spiritual journey where you felt a block, this might be being removed right now. And also soothing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it can ease troubled places. So, you know, if you've had something that's been challenging or difficult, it can soothe that. Also, as always with Neptune, we put that reminder of there is that capacity for rose-tinted glasses to makes me think of like cults and things like that, where you think you find your guru and your leader and they've got feet of clay. So, yeah, as always, be aware that there's that potential to everybody is human, everybody has a shadow side.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to go your own path and use your own instincts, really, I suppose, with that, and be aware that they may be confused. You might be putting somebody on a pedestal who doesn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. And now Mars direct, and this is a biggie. I mean, I also think, you know, Mars direct is going to happen at 17 degrees exactly, 0 minutes. And that is a big deal. Let me put it that way. So with regard to Mars direct, as it's very loud when it does this, if you have anything at 17 degrees of cardinal signs, this is pretty much for you. And I might even go a few degrees on either side. I'm at a 22 degree Cancer rising, and I'm going to consider this pretty much conjoined to my ascendant degree because it's just a big deal. The thing I love the most, though, about Mars direct here is that Mercury is trine to it in Pisces, and Saturn's pretty close to that. So there is just, I think, a lot of, I don't want to say revelation. That's not the right word. I want to say direct emphasis is what I'm trying to say for these two places in your chart. Wherever you have Cancer and Pisces, this is direct emphasis. The other thing that stands out to me about this Mars direct moment is that the moon is pretty close to exactly opposite of it. It's only 3 degrees away, and it will very, very soon after the direct moment will oppose Mars. So even, you know, it's even bringing in this Capricorn area, which is structure and integrity and things of that nature. So, you know, I do expect for things in the world to probably happen on this day. What that is, I don't want to speculate on, but I do think the nature of Mars and Cancer has people really standing up for their needs. And right now there's a lot of disparity all over the world between classes, between races, between all sorts of different types of groups of people. And I think my one fear is that, you know, this leads to tribalism in a way, because we're forced to come back and go, well, we'll take care of ourselves. So there are healthy ways to do this, and there are not healthy ways to do this. And I think the healthy way is, you know, to take care of people around you, regardless of, you know, whether they're your family or not. I know in my neighborhood, I'm going to take care of my neighbors, you know, and I'm going to focus on what we need locally. That's a healthy way. I don't think it helps to exclude people. And that's the Pisces part of this, is the love for everyone and making sure you're also taking care of your own. It's both, you know? So I do think intuition will be strong on this date. And I think there is a certain sense that there's some work to do with Saturn being there. Like, okay, I have my marching orders. I have made sure that this area of my life is okay, redone a few things, still not done redoing. But at this point, this is forward movement. And this is where I think we start to slide into much new energy, much newer, much different energy. Because from here, we are starting to move toward the new moon and eclipse season. So this is, I think if things have been going slow for you, this is the moment things pick up. If things have been unsure for you, I'm not saying things will be short from here because of all the Pisces, that might be a little precarious, but I do think you will be much more clear on direction from this point forward. And it will be something that you feel deep within your gut because it is Cancer. So I think that's my initial thoughts on it. I'm sure I can find more, especially with the fact that it's at exactly 17 degrees of Cancer. There's something there. I'm going to have to look up the Sabian symbol for that.
Yeah, well, you look at that, the Mars, of course, to get here. I've got the honeycomb illustration, but before we moved there, Mars stationed at 6 degrees of Leo to move. And with the station, we often say about it carrying the true impact of what that symbolizes. And just a reminder that on that station, on that day, December the 6th, was that South Korean leader who declared martial law. And then it was immediately rescinded. So that's kind of like the most Mars going retrograde thing ever, because it's martial law, it's the leader because it's Leo, and then it's, no, let's not do it. It's changing your mind. It's rescinded because Mars is going retrograde, so it's not going to happen. So that was how it like showed up so literally on the day of the station. So we might equally have different things. Of course, it'd be different because it's Cancer and watery. It's not that fiery energy of the leader. And the martial law that Mars here is very different, but also like the moon there in the sign of Mars's exaltation. It's just nice the way light of Mars's exaltation back to it. It just feels like it. Again, we said with an earlier aspect that the moon was acting as like a cheerleader to Mars, where it's struggling a little bit in Cancer, and here at the time of station, it's still. So it still feels like the moon is cheerleading on. It's in the sign of its exaltation. It's just got that extra boost of martial energy that it's feeding back, even though they're opposites. And there's some tension. Yeah. It's like, I've got you back.
Yeah.
And follow through. And yeah, so we've got these dates here. Did you find the symbol?
I did. So I love it because whenever you read a Sabian symbol, in case anyone's unaware, if it's 17 degrees and 1 minute, you read the 18th degree. But if it's 17 degrees, 0 minutes, you get to read that degree. Mm-hmm. And so for me, whenever I see anything at a degree and 0 minutes, I get excited because I'm like, oh, that's the actual degree of the Sabian symbol. And it is the unfoldment of multi-level potentialities issuing from an original germ. So it's basically the urge to actualize potential. You know, it's the seed planting, but that seed could grow all different types of plants. So it's the unfolding of that. You don't know, maybe you don't know what seed was planted. And I think that makes so much sense. I mean, the key word is growth here, which I think Cancer being a fertile sign, but with it being Mars and trining all this Pisces, it does speak to the multi-level potentialities. You know, sometimes with Pisces, you don't know what's going to come from that seed. You know, it's like just taking a pack of wildflower seeds and throwing it out. And this is the moment that maybe we get to see what this has all been about. So I really enjoy that Sabian symbol.
Yeah, that's really significant, isn't it? We see this journey here. This is where we are in this journey, but it also reminds us when it started. Mm-hmm. When Mars first ingressed into Cancer, went into its shadow, went into Leo, station retrograde. That was at the time the South Korean leader declared the martial law and changed his mind. The martial law, January the 6th, back into Cancer. And now we've reached this point in the journey. So it's like a falling away from the peak. This whole flat line here is the whole of the peak of that journey. So we really should now be aware of what it's meant for us personally, that we know what we need to do and be starting to prepare for that when it's moving direct. So obviously it's stationary now, and we're going to be moving through the shadow. Even though it's going to station direct and start moving direct, it still has to return to Leo in April, and then it will not be out of the shadow until May. So we've got some time still to go, and then it's not really fully over until June when it reaches Virgo. So that's right. The whole story comes wrapped up in a bow for us. So we're a little way away. We're about 2/3 of the way through the complete, but we have got to the peak. We've got to the end of the peak, the end of the beginning.
Now we're about to go down the slide.
Yay! This is the easier bit.
Yeah, I will say, except for the Mars opposition to Pluto, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. That's waiting for us in April 27th, that Mars opposition to Pluto. But we've done it already, We
have.
Third pass, we've had it in November, at the beginning of January, and then in April. And that's kind of, those 3 passes are like 3 chances, or like I say, 3 coats of paint, or just that returning to something to finish it off. So again, whatever came up for you, if anything came up on those dates. And you can find this graphic on the Honeycomb website. So it is really useful, again, for tracking dates. So November the 3rd, January the 3rd. And if significant events occurred for you then you'll have a good idea of what to expect at the end.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing happened for you then, you're all clear, you don't have planets or angles being affected, and you don't have to worry about the Mars-Pluto opposition. But I do always say, be aware that it's affecting other people around you. So you might be okay, but you're not in a bubble.
Right.
People around you that are being affected by it, and it might affect their actions. But we'll talk about that in April.
That's right.
And Mandi, you made this beautiful slide for the talk that you did, that you so kindly shared with me, for a talk that I did on the astrology of 2025, and you really laid out. Do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, I mean, it gives us an opportunity with Mars retrograde in both Leo and Cancer to check out every part of our lives, because the rulers of both signs move pretty fast. So when you have Mars even in Leo, even as long as it was, the sun was moving every day a degree. And then Mars retrograde in Cancer, the moon's moving, every 2 days to 3 days through a sign. So it gives us a chance to really, I guess, check out every part of our life. With Mars retrograde in Leo, it's rediscovering true passions, authenticity over ego, recalibrating confidence, aligning with the heart's desires. I like the defining courage on your terms. I really like that. As far as clarifying emotional needs with Mars retrograde in Cancer, I think the thing is with what we're talking about, and I have February 23rd because it's different in the U.S. It's just before midnight in the U.S., but it's after midnight in London. But
I'm actually thinking it happens during the day when we're both on the same time scale and we've both got the same dates.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just the date. The dates are arbitrary, I guess, in astrology.
Early hours of the morning when it happens here, it messes us up, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. So with the clarifying emotional needs part, I think that the retrograde is the part of it that helps us to clarify, but we may not understand that until the direct motion. So that being the top one, I think is the top phrase for the moment that it goes direct. And then the revisiting emotional priorities, again, we've sort of done that. Healing emotional motivations. Now the healing, I think, takes place on a direct motion as well. Finding strength and vulnerability. If anything, the Mars retrograde made us realize that sometimes you can't overcome the vulnerability. You just have to say, look, here is how I feel. And I know I had my own breakdowns. I had some health issues, and one night I just break down, and I didn't even want to talk about it, but I just couldn't handle the weight of it anymore. I had to, kind of scream and cry about it for a minute. That's the nature of this. So at the direct moment, it may be like that for you. And then nurturing authentic desires. I think that's always a Mars retrograde thing, but the nurturing part is the Cancer. So authentic desires are a Mars thing, your true desires. And as we go direct and then into Leo, again, you may not have realized that being vulnerable made you redefine courage on your own terms. And those are the things that come up when Mars goes back into Leo. And it's It's the sweeping up. It's the realizations that come after the retrograde that we have on the direct motion. And I do have the kind of the warrior sitting out looking at the ocean because, maybe he needed to take a break before, just to make sure he was fighting for the correct thing,
Yeah, getting clarity from the sun was kind of
right. Exactly.
It makes me think as well of like Mars ruling Aries, and Aries being about finding yourself. And actually, we all have vulnerabilities that some of us can't acknowledge or admit to them or work with them. And it's a human thing that to have frailties and vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So to actually find that strength in it is quite significant, to acknowledge that. And also, I think I've said before, when you watch these reality programs, you find that actually the person, who's all brash and has that mask on doesn't appeal to us on a human connection level. But when somebody does drop that mask and admit to their vulnerabilities, they become much more appealing as a character to support, or their story arc or something becomes meaningful suddenly, I feel, because it's happening in Cancer, but it's also linking into this Aries story of the planets that are moving into Aries.
Yes.
Being asked of us there.
I agree.
We got Saturn conjunct Mercury. So this is on the 25th of February. So we've been waiting for this as Mercury's been moving forward. And Saturn being like this mental focus and discipline that's being brought to our thoughts and the way we organize our thoughts and our ideas, everything that's coming to us in this dreamy way through this Piscean Jupiterian. I mean, Jupiter likes to create order. I think both Saturn and Jupiter are planets that create order, but in different ways.
Yeah. And timekeepers too.
Yeah, and timekeepers. Saturn by sort of removing things and restricting and making limits, but Jupiter by bringing everything in and everything together. So there's this like dichotomy of what the ruler wants, and then Saturn's trying to navigate that, maybe difficulty possibly. But it's bringing that mental focus and discipline. It's like a specialist kind of training, like a mental maturation, a time in this cycle when they meet. So it's showing us what have we learned as Mercury's travelled around since their last meeting, and what are they now going to meet and decide is ahead for us on the next cycle. So it's like dedicated study or an analysis, like a deep dive into something. I mean, thinking about like our 4-year astro program that I started with Nightlight, thinking I was just going to do 1 year and then move on to another teacher, and I've ended up 4 years later completing the whole program. So that just feels so Saturn Mercury. It's like, no, Mercury would flit around and be curious and do all the things, but Saturn's like, no, you're going to stick at this. You're going to see this through. You're going to complete it. You're going to put some hard growth in and some hard work, and you're really going to learn it all. So yeah, long-term deals and strategic negotiations as well. Mercury being the lord of like business and commerce as well. So if there's negotiations going on, Saturn's going to show you any limits or boundaries on that or restrictions to it, and help you get really strategic about how you're approaching that. And also careful thought, and I'm thinking speech brevity with me sort of rambling on about this with all the ideas.
That's a good way to look at it, because I mean, Saturn does demand mastery. I look at Saturn as the master, so, and that's, I mean, just what you were saying too. I don't know. I always look at Saturn as commitment as well. And with Mars stationing direct kind of intertwined to that, Mercury was trying to Mars, and it's Mercury trying Mars goes direct, and then Mars makes the commitment to it. I mean, Mercury makes the commitment to it when it passes Saturn. So both of them, really, neither one of those was wrong. And, with the square of Saturn by sign to Jupiter, which rules Pisces, and Mercury being back by Saturn, there is this, you were talking about how Saturn kind of takes away and Jupiter brings everything in. And it reminds me of breathing. You have to inhale and exhale. And that's kind of what this is, astrologically, it's the inhale and the exhale not at the same time. I guess it would be cool if you could do that at the same time, but I guess simultaneously is what I'm trying to say, that we are doing this exhale and then we get to do the inhale. And that's a beautiful movement and a beautiful life-giving thing. And so if there is any tension, tension is the life-giving thing. So it's okay, basically. And I guess Mercury moving past it does feel nice, because as it builds up to it is really when you might feel the restriction of it. But once it passes it is when you have a diving board to jump off of, So I'm pretty excited about that.
At that meeting, and they've got new ideas to work on, new things that
Mm-hmm.
for you. Whereas approaching it, you're being asked to release the old that you've outgrown from their last cycle, and it's a bit more challenging for us to do that.
Yeah, and when was let me look at when the last time Mercury hit Saturn was, because that might be something good to look at. Mercury conjunct Saturn. That would have been February 28th, 2024. That was at 9 degrees, where the new moon will be.
Yay! We do love nines.
We do. I just keep seeing, and it's crazy because the last time the North Node conjoined Neptune in Pisces was at 9 degrees back in the 1800s. So there's these 9 degrees of Pisces things coming up. But yeah, you can look back to February 28th, 2024 to see if there was something like that. And it was also a Cazimi. It was Mercury, Saturn, Sun. So that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that was a big one. Have all three.
Yeah, so basically 1 full year before this was the last Mercury Saturn conjunction. So yeah, look back at it. And that was because it was so early in Pisces. This is more of an evolved version of that,
Yeah, it's reached like the third decan now, hasn't it? Yeah, it's traveled through the first and the second. It's in Mars's decan, of course.
Yeah.
So again, we're looking to Mars in Cancer and what we've learned, and that's also informing what they're doing.
That's right.
And the way forward. And of course, Mercury will be meeting that node, bringing that fated karmic element in. I've got like the archetypes there is that measured language, like conciseness. So, those haiku poems that are just a couple of lines. And also like that dry comedy, the satire of things like The Simpsons or The Office, things like that, where it's just a little bit quirky. We've also got the Sun and Neptune there, and they're bringing in their significations, which we've talked about a lot, because there's so much happening in Pisces, but the clarity from the Sun that Mercury is traveling away from now, that Mercury's just had its Cazimi with the Sun, the Aries, they're now sort of bringing that forward into Pisces, preparing for the Sun to move into Aries. But the significance again of this cusp line between Aries and Pisces, and the trine to Mars you've mentioned, and the sextile to Uranus as well.
Yeah.
The Uranus is 23. So we see how Uranus has been brought into so many of the aspects that we talked about this month.
Yeah. And the full moons, the new moons have been at 9 degrees, but all the full moons have been in the 20s interacting with Uranus, I think. So in some way.
Yeah. So that's sort of bringing us into some sort of new energy, isn't it? As Uranus finishes up its journey through Taurus, there's a real concentration on what is Uranus telling us about Taurus. Now here we've had the farmers protesting and warnings about the bird flu. There's been articles about that, and a new strains been discovered here. So things like that coming into the collective awareness, being a generational planet, anything that affects those kind of Venusian Taurus. And of course, as well, being a fixed sign, these things are likely to be long lasting. So these disputes and everything, you sort of think, well, yeah, but in a fixed sign, it's not going to be mutual. It's not going to come and go and shift and change. It's a long-term thing that we're looking at. Even though Uranus might bring it in suddenly, it's likely to stay with us for some time, take a while to reach resolution. Did you have a Sabian symbol for us?
For the 20th degree? I can do that. And I love the Sabian symbols just because a word picture is kind of the way I love to, I come up with different things I think about a degree, or, a lot of people do, but Dan Rudyard spent a lot of time doing that. So it's 20 degrees and 15 minutes. I will read for the 21st degree of Pisces, which is under the watchful and kind eye of a servant. A girl holds a little white lamb. So tactile awareness of the wonders of living, basically. Hope for a future that can be felt, sometimes naively. Basically, it's hope, I think, is the best way to put it.
That's nice, isn't it? And lamb symbolizing spring and season, and yeah, I don't know, like Saturn being able to bring things into form as well. Just that feels like that hope that this is giving Mercury a chance to really, okay, you've got this idea, but it's doing no good while it's stuck in your head or going around in your head, or what are you actually going to do with it? Are you going to be brave enough to put it down on paper and actually bring it into some sort of material form. Because in Pisces, it can just get lost in that ocean. Is it
Very true.
messages in bottles that like wash up sometimes years and years later? That's such a thing, isn't it?
It is.
Wow.
We're at the end of the week of, what was that, the 19th or 25th or something like that. But we're at the end of it. So thank you for joining us. My name is Mandi Ray of Ecstatic Astrology, and this is Sonia of Celestia Astrology. And I'm so glad to be here with Asteria Sophia Kairos. And yeah, check us out online. We would love it if you'd comment, like, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.